Today, I have a wonderful guest here with me. He's called John Kennedy. He is a neuroplasticity coach, and his specialization is combat brain training. Now, my first question is, I have seen on LinkedIn that you have a keynote that began with the phrase, let's train your brain to improvise, adapt, and overcome. So, why are these three abilities becoming so important in today's world?
Great question. That actually, improvise, adapt, and overcome is actually the motto for the U.S. Marine Corps. And my first contract that actually developed this program was for our U.S. Marines. And the goal was to help them in two different ways. One, as they go into combat, which is the most stressful environment, to survive, and also then to accelerate recovery from the wounds of war coming out of battle. And so, in a tough situation like that, you have to be able to unconsciously improvise, adapt, and overcome because it's an asymmetric environment, very similar to entrepreneurs and other people that are in those type of situations. You have to be able to make those decisions without thinking, but get into what we call flow state. So you're making the decisions unconsciously, but they're the decisions you need, in that case, to save your life, but for whatever we have to do.
I know that many people have problems falling asleep, and I'm sure you have some kind of great trick where even in the worst battle, where a soldier has to fall asleep in an environment where it's actually dangerous, do you have any great method to tell people how they can fall asleep at any place, anytime?
That's a great question because I'm not really a sleep expert, but I know the Marines, those guys work so hard they could fall asleep at the drop of a hat. I know there's a lot of breathing techniques to help with sleep that I think people can help. I know that when you're tired, obviously you sleep better. When I was training Air Force pilots with my program, because it makes the brain work really hard, they were sleeping much better. So as far as sleep, again, I'm not an expert. There's a lot of great programs out there that can help people sleep.
For people who have CPTSD, you know about that. And I'm sure you also know that the symptomatics of CPTSD, what we see in those people, looks very similar and has a lot of overlap with people who have autism and ADHD. Now, do you know how to divide between the two? Can you say a few things how we can see the difference?
So basically, the way my program works, and it's the only program of its kind in the world, according to the military, combat brain training, we don't try to fix anything because most programs, they start with an assessment. They want to know what to fix. What we do is give the brain a very simple task to do, and the brain will rewire where it needs to do what we ask it to do. So basically, we give the brain very simple tasks. So I like to say my program is easy enough for a 5-year-old, but tough enough for a Navy SEAL. So I work with both ends of the spectrum. And what we were really basically doing is the brain is rewiring itself to be optimal. So for PTSD, for example, we don't heal the trauma, but we actually have the symptoms go away. They don't get triggered anymore. So they get back to leading a normal life. With autism, we've had great success lately with autistics. And autism, the core theory is that it's a filtering issue. So if they have trouble filtering, that's why, very particular about what they want to do. They want to be in their comfort zone. They have a lot of boundaries around, their space. Well, when we improve the filtering of the brain, then they don't need those anymore. So it's tremendous success one young man going from nonverbal to a chatterbox after just one session. So again, by rewiring the brain to be optimal, we can really help people overcome all kinds of problems.
Are you using methods like hypnotization, or how do you do that?
No, it's actually, again, it's the only program of its kind in the world, and basically I call it the field I created for the Marines originally. I call applied neuroplasticity. So basically, my background was in process reengineering. We took a very specific framework of mental processes we need to succeed. And then I developed exercises that would use neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, to actually make the changes in those critical areas very quickly. Now, the big differentiator, and we have a lot of research that supports this, the type of stimulation we use is called robust stimulation. Robust stimulation starts to change the brain immediately. There's no other program in the world really that uses this. And so we push the brain to a comfort zone. We push past the comfort zone, and the brain changes immediately in those areas. This is based on research from Yoshi and Greinberger and a couple of other real people in the forefront of neuroplasticity. And so the actual interface is fun. People laugh, they have fun, we release dopamine and endorphins. And literally 20, 30 minutes later, we actually use a metric, their brain processing is faster and they're more focused.
So you talked about this robust stimulation, and of course certain pictures were coming up in my mind of what that means exactly. You said it's not something with being hypnotized or so. And now I have got this picture of something like laughter yoga, in case you know that, if you have ever been in a yoga class, which is a laughter yoga class. So this is where people actually do something really funny. They are allowed to become childish again and jump around and run around as if they were children, and they immediately start laughing, and then the laughing is like very contagious. So is it something like that?
Well, laughter is actually very healthy, right? So people do laugh. It's not like that at all, but the laughter comes because when you give your brain a task to do that it's not sure it can do, it releases dopamine. That's the expectation. That makes you feel good. And then when you accomplish it, there's endorphins. We do it with someone else, there's oxytocin. So all these different neurotransmitters are being produced, and they're called the feel-good neurotransmitters, right? The feel-good hormones. So they're released as people do the exercises. That also helps the brain change faster, but then they laugh. I mean, it's really funny how even, got Navy SEALs, they're laughing when they're doing these exercises.
And are these tasks more on the cognitive side or more on the physical side?
Great question. We actually combine both. So in order to really make real world changes, I mean, there's a lot of brain training games out there, right? They're on a phone. They don't work. I mean, you get better at them because you practice, but they don't connect to the real world. So in order for us to get the maximum benefit, we improve executive function at the same time we connect to the real world. So it is physical. So we use hands, we use feet, eyes, ears, mouth. If I work with an athlete, for example, one of my clients is one of the top women goalies in the world. So for her, we integrate soccer and goalie motions with the brain training. So now those connections to the real world become faster and more focused. So, and reaction time is through the roof. She's so much faster. So if we can incorporate the body with the brain, that makes better connections.
So actually you use all the five senses, like the tactile sense, the smell, what you see, imagination, color. So basically everything is included.
Yes, we're experimenting with the smell. We don't have the smell really in there that well, but everything else, eyes are so basically the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system we want to synchronize. So that's why eyes, ears, mouth, hands, feet, anything. For athletes in particular, they notice this right away because of the connection to the real world, to the motions that they use in their sports. We integrate those so they become unconscious. So golfers play better, pickleball players play better. I don't know if you have pickleball in Europe. It's really popular here in America. But tennis players I've worked with, it doesn't matter what sport, they improve.
Good. Many people believe that intelligence would be something fixed. How does neuroplasticity challenge that belief? And what changes can people realistically expect through deliberate training?
That's great, and I would recommend all those people read a book by Norman Doidge. It's called The Brain That Changes Itself, because that was a seminal book. It helped me get my ideas on how this could possibly work, and that's what he talks about. Because in the past, brain areas were pretty much controlled by psychology, and psychology believed that your brain doesn't physically change. Well, then brain scanning came out, and we saw that happening, and it went more into the realm of neuroscience. And so we have pictures of the brain changing. And so the brain changes from stimulation till the day we die. It's always changing. And I think that's important for people to realize that they're not fixed, they're not set. Wherever their performance is, if they want to practice that, especially cognitively, if they do challenging cognitive things. Now, the key though is that challenging cognitive exercise is not a game on a phone. It's something that engages their hands. So playing a sport, playing games, for little kids, they should be playing blocks. They shouldn't be on a phone. Anything where they're engaging with the real world is so important for building those, especially as a child, building those foundational connections.
Now, you've been talking about certain brain areas. Have you seen an improvement in brain pictures before and after? Like, I'm saying this because I personally did an MRI of my brain and they told me you have hippocampus sclerosis. So hippocampus is for long-term memory. And when there's sclerosis, then certain memories have basically been erased. Now, do you think they can come back? Do you think the hippocampus can basically rebuild itself even though there is this scar tissue?
Well, one of the things that happens, and one of our neuroscientists at Harvard called this the most powerful brain training program because we increase blood flow through the brain. A lot of times we lose memory because connections, capillaries that feed neurons have been dried out, the neurons start to die. And so even physical damage like you're talking about, we can rewire around that. We have tremendous improvements in memory, everything from strokes, from Guillain-Barré syndrome, from concussions, from anything that's really impacted people's memory. When they go through our program, the brain will rewire, and when it makes those connections again, they can actually restore their memory, short term as well as long term.
When you say we wire around that, do you think that other parts of the brain can basically replace the missing areas, like they just do the job that other neurons cannot do anymore?
I'm not a neuroscientist. That's an excellent question. I'm not sure. I do know that the way the brain works, at least from the neuroplasticity perspective, wherever it works harder, it changes faster. And wherever it struggles, it changes faster. So depending on what caused the memory loss or where the memory loss is from, I think that's why we can actually help regain those memories.
In a world of constant distraction and information overload, what are the biggest threats to cognitive efficiency and how can we protect our brain's performance?
Well, one thing is going back to just the understanding that our brains are like our bodies, we need to exercise them. And exercise doesn't mean looking at a screen. So the way that, especially as we get older, the more we can engage with people, with conversations, with playing sports, with doing active things, read a real map instead of using Google Maps. I mean, those are the kind of things that continually challenge our brain. Our program obviously is one way to do that because it challenges the brain so quickly to make changes. But I think the main thing for people to realize, if they just understand that everything they repeat that's the ruts that they're forming. And so, especially if they're working, with their kids, they want their kids to obviously perform better. They have to be very aware of what stimulation their kids are repeating.
Yes. Is there a difference between having a fast brain and having an efficient brain? And what habits separate high performers from people who simply keep themselves busy?
Habits are very important because when we rely on a habit or a process like that, we don't have to think about it. It's one of the benefits of it. We actually help people change any habit in 30 minutes, not 30 days, using applied neuroplasticity. So we can always change habits, and we put us more in control of it. But a person who's going to be disciplined like that is going to be a kind of person who wants to improve their body. So they're going to do things. They're going to exercise. They're going to have a morning routine, which is so important. Someone who just does nothing, right? They just allow things happen to them, then they're missing out on all the wonderful things that could be happening if they would put the effort in.
Do you think there are things that just cannot be changed? Like, for example, from my life, I know that I'm very good with words. I'm eloquent. I can speak. I can do all of these things, and I can do nothing with numbers. If you give me mathematics, it will always be wrong. So, and even if I tried harder, not just having the thing in the forenoon with the school, but also going to an extra class in the afternoons and stuff, all of it didn't help. So, do you think there are some things that we are just bad at and that no program in the world, no matter how good it is, can change it?
That's a great question. Because again, math, I'm not sure that because I'm sure you tried to learn math. I know one thing our program does is it kind of improves the efficiency of both sides of the brain. So you've got your conceptual as well as like your detail, like the numbers. That's an excellent question. I think I just know that your brains can always change. So if you wanted to learn math, there's ways you probably could. But if you don't need, you're so wonderful at the other things you're doing, you probably don't need to have that math skill. So in the big picture, we can always change our brains. In the detail about math, I don't know actually. It's interesting. Kids, when I work with families, one of the most important thing for kids to learn at a young age is memorizing the times tables. I don't know if you do that in Europe. That changes their whole life, their whole trajectory of math. Because once it's memorized and it's something you use all the time, you don't have to think about it. And that's kind of what we want to do. Maybe that goes to your question. We want to put the things that we have to think about, we want to put them in the unconscious where they're there, we can access them, but we don't we don't have to learn them over each time.
So, if someone had just 10 minutes a day to invest in improving their own brain, what exercises or routines would you think deliver the greatest long-term benefits?
Well, I don't always want to keep talking about my program, but that's exactly what it is. 5 to 10 minutes a day doing these exercises. Each one is designed to bring in more parts of the brain and make it work harder. We actually call them neural primers. So if you run through one of the exercises for 1 or 2 minutes a day, even before a meeting or before you play sports or before you do anything that you want to be primed for, it actually gets your brain, it's like a real quick speed up, refocus, memory booster drill. And you can run through those anytime during the day. I have a young woman who started her own business. This was in Montreal, a lot of pressure, not getting enough sleep. She started doing these several times during the day before she had a proposal or a meeting. She noted that she was getting more done better and faster. And within 3 weeks, she had freed up so much time she could start dating again. Because exactly what you're saying, just investing 10 minutes a day or breaking it up a couple of times during the day completely changed her life.
Your approach combines neuroscience with practical training. How do you distinguish evidence-based brain training from the many cognitive enhancements claims that are out there, like brain hacks? There are so many coaches who say so many things. They say biohacking and take supplements and do intermittent fasting and all of that. How do you make the difference? What is the real thing and what is just BS?
Well, I never, if something works, I never want to, I don't compete with anybody, which I love. And I can always partner with people. And actually, I certify other practitioners now so they can do what I do with their clients. All those things you got to investigate. I'm sure there's a lot of, I was just on a panel before this with someone who does very specific types of nutraceuticals and stuff for the brain. They may work. I do know that one of the differences is with my program is, as our neuroscientists say, the changes are permanent. So if you're going to take pills or you're going to do something, you have to keep doing it, right? You have to keep going. Well, with this program, because the brain changes are permanent, your whole baseline improves and your performance for any area of life now is better. But I would encourage people to check some of these out. They have the red light therapy. There's grounding mats. There's all kinds of things that may actually be very beneficial.
Yeah, I think you are right because every person is different and has different needs. and a different body. So I think one person might benefit from doing an ice bath every day, and for another person,
Yeah.
this is too much for them, and for them, it's much better to go get some infrared light or something like that. So it really depends on the person. If every person listening to your keynote just remembered one single idea that you give them about training their brain to improvise, adapt, and overcome, what would you want that idea to be?
I think it would be an awareness. I think they have to understand that everything they do, they think or say, if they repeat it, that's going to be the ruts that they create. So neuroplasticity, everything we do, say, or think, and repeat it, those are the ways that our brains are going to tend to operate.
What I find really interesting is that you said everything we say, do, and think, but what you didn't include is everything we feel. Why did you leave that out?
That's a good question. I didn't think about feeling, but it's both because feelings are more a result of something, right? So you feel based on something that you do. So if you you take care of your brain, you're going to feel better. Everything we do, say, or think is something we control, right? So if I repeat something over and over again, I'm doing that consciously. I might feel really good about that. But you actually did raise a good point because if you have stronger feelings while you are thinking or doing or saying, those changes happen faster. So feelings are a very important part of neuroplasticity. It's just that it's hard that you can't, okay, I'm going to feel happy right now and feel happy, right? You have to you can't control the feelings, but they are there. And if you can create them while you're doing other things, it'll change your brain faster.
To a certain extent, you can control them. If you are in an extreme situation, let's say you're in Guantanamo, of course there is no way that you can be in control of your own nervous system. But if you are at home and you just have a very bad day, you know, you missed your cab and then something broke and the coffee was spilled all over your shirt, then you can just stand in some kind of in front of a mirror, even if it's just the toilet in the mall. You go to the mirror and you smile to yourself for 2 minutes, and I swear to you, your brain will realize, "Ooh, she's smiling. We don't know what she's smiling about, but we feel happy now."
No, that's excellent. Totally. Thank you. I'm always learning new things. That's absolutely true, right? You can do that. So, and if you make that a habit, right? So let's say every time you have a meeting, you go smile, right? You're doing something that's connected to that positive feeling, then you can feel happy.
Yeah, I
So I
actually
like that.
combine that with something because every morning I give people a very short good morning video, and each time I say, "Good morning, I woke up in my highest timeline." This was a wonderful interview. Is there anything that you really want to say, something that we didn't talk about, but which is on your heart, where you say that's something I really wanted to mention?
Just, one of the things I like to get out there, I just want people to have hope. We have helped so many people with so many, I mean, concussions, coming out of comas, autism, and so I think, I mean, they have to look for it, but I think people just need to have hope that if they're in a place where they feel that their mental or their physical struggles are to a point where there's no hope, there is hope. And I think the more we can encourage them that they can improve their situation, the more hopeful they can be.
Wonderful. That's a good finish for our interview. So I will say goodbye now and thank you so much for being my guest. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you.